Hey everybody, this is Alex Merced, and you're listening to another episode of Select Star from Data Lake. This is Alex Merced, one of your hosts, and today what I want to talk about is there's been some great news this week, and that is that a pull request for the Trino project was accepted that allowed support for the Nessie catalog. Now, what does this mean? The Nessie catalog is a transactional data lake catalog. So the idea is you have Apache Iceberg tables, which provide you snapshot isolation and rollback and time travel, but all at the table level. So basically, when you want to time travel, you're time traveling one table at a time. When you're rolling back one table at a time. You even have branching and merging now, but again, it's at a table level, which is fine and has several use cases where that can be very useful. Now, where Nessie comes in is that it brings that whole idea of like snapshot isolation to the catalog. So the idea is that when we talk about your collection of Iceberg tables, you have basically a snapshot of their current snapshot every time you make a change at the catalog level. So basically, every change to any table gets captured as a commit on the Nessie catalog, which allows you to roll back. So if you run into trouble, you don't have to roll back one table at a time. You can roll back all the tables at the catalog level. You can time travel the entire catalog. So if you have a query that revolves around multiple tables, at multiple points in time, or at a single point in time, you can just time travel the catalog instead of having to, repeat the time travel syntax from multiple tables. So that's very nice. And also you have tagging, where you could tag a table, but if you need multiple tables at a particular point in time, why not tag a commit at the catalog level, so that you only have to just refer to the tag. So it brings you some of these niceties of being able to do this at a catalog level abstraction. But it also brings the ability to do Git-like things like merging and branching, so you can do some isolation, multi-table transactions, and other possibilities. Okay, so that's all really, really well and good. Okay. But another benefit of having a catalog is the portability of your tables. The idea is that you want an open lakehouse. You don't just want a data warehouse that works with your data lake, and you're still sort of like locked in. You're still subject to cost creep, and then later on when you're trying to deal with that creep of costs, you end up with these huge migration issues because you're migrating your data from between different formats, so that way you can use more tools. That's sort of the whole benefit of using Apache Iceberg. It's really sort of like this open format. Like you can really use it with pretty much most tool sets, the vast majority of tool sets, on an equal level, in the sense that like basically there's no features that are sort of hidden behind a wall. Now some vendors will bring their own goodies to the Iceberg party, but there's no sort of major key features that a table format would need to exist that are not baked into the format itself. Okay, like I said, you can do branching and tagging just from an Apache Iceberg table. Nessie is just bringing the extra goodies of being able to do that at the catalog level, and Nessie is also an open source project. Companies like Dremio and Tabular bring you things like automated table optimization, but again, your data is still an Iceberg, and you can switch between these tools and use these different tools, and that's the beauty of it. Okay, unlike other formats where you don't necessarily have that many vendors that you can select from to provide you with a lot of these extra bonus features. And some of the ability to deliver those bonus features are locked away behind proprietary code, making the format outside of that vendor very difficult to use. So, yay for Apache Iceberg. But continuing on that story, but the nice thing about Nessie is that you have an open source catalog. Okay, again, there are different catalogs you can use with Apache Iceberg, but Nessie is the only open source catalog implementation. Okay, basically when you think about open source catalog standards when it comes to Apache Iceberg, you have two things. You have an open source REST open API spec. That's not an implementation. It's basically the rules for creating an implementation to use the REST client libraries. Okay, and this is technically what Tabular uses. So basically, when you interact with a Tabular catalog, their catalog isn't necessarily open source, but they use the open source spec to provide that client interface. And that's one approach. Nessie also has a standard REST API spec as well that people can use, but also provides an open source implementation of the catalog. So in that case, you don't have to necessarily implement the spec. You already have a service that you can use right out of the box. Although again, there is a open source open API spec for Nessie as well. So theoretically, you could create your own custom implementation with that spec and then use the Nessie client libraries to work with Iceberg things. But the real reason you'd want to do this is because you want to use the Nessie implementation. But again, theoretically, since there is an open API spec and it works through a REST API, you could theoretically implement like a Python-based version of Nessie or a Rust-based version of Nessie in the future. If I think the current version is in Java. Okay, but again, theoretically, since it all interacts, whether you're talking about the REST client or the Nessie client, they both interact through standard REST APIs. The actual implementation can be done in any language. But again, Nessie, you actually have an implementation that is open source that you could self-deploy. But that makes your tables portable without you having to lock yourself into any vendor. Now you can choose to use a cloud managed version of Nessie. That's what Dremio Arctic is. Dremio Arctic is a service that provides you a cloud managed Nessie catalog, and that's pretty cool. Okay, and you get a bunch of extra features like the automated table optimization and cleanup. You get a nice UI that allows you to manage all your branches and view your commits and roll back your catalog and do all that fun stuff. And you can use that. The cool thing is you're not locked in. Okay, just by using the Arctic catalog, your tables are now portable between Trino, Dremio, Spark, Flink, Presto. So a lot of tools can access that catalog and work with those tables. So you have that. But again, later on, like let's say you want to stand your own Nessie server, especially now that they've released a cloud, a catalog migration tool, you could just migrate your tables right over from to a Nessie catalog that you run. And again, all that metadata, all that data will still be tracked. Okay, you don't. Again, you're not locked in. You're not locked into a particular engine. You're not locked into a particular catalog. This is what's nice about the Iceberg Nessie sort of combination ecosystem, and it's always exciting when another tool allows you to work with the Nessie catalog because it just makes that a value proposition bigger to have that. What I sometimes like to call a glacial lakehouse, a mix of Iceberg and Nessie. You just have this big image of the Loch Ness monster on top of an iceberg, and it's just really happy. Yeah. So I just want to kind of talk about that because I thought that was really cool. If you haven't tried the Dremio Arctic service, it's pretty cool. I do have some tutorials on that. I'll see if I can post one in the episode description if you want to try it out. It's a really easy way to get started with Nessie. You just literally sign up for Dremio Cloud, which is free, and then you just create a catalog, which is free, and then you can, run Spark in a Docker container on your laptop and write tables to it. Can't complain. Well, my name is Alex Merced. I'll see you all in the next episode. Have a great day and enjoy.